I am in a new relationship, and my boyfriend did tell me that he and his girl best friend briefly dated a few years ago and slept together once, but realized they're better as friends. I felt a bit wary, but I am also aware that I have friendships with men I have been with, and there's truly nothing there, for me at least. I do believe him when he says it's totally platonic for him, though he has mentioned his most recent ex. They were together for over a year and a half. Wasn't the girl best friend's biggest fan, but to each their own. The girl best friend sounded cool, and he mentioned we have a lot of things in common, she and I, and he could see us becoming good friends. Exes have requested some distance between the girl best friend and my boyfriend as it made them uncomfortable, but I decided not to worry about it until I met her and judged for myself. The other night, I was spending the night at my boyfriend's when I woke up to a woman who had entered the apartment and came straight to his bedroom doorway and just stared at us in his bed. When I first heard the sound of the door unlocking and a light click on, I was sleeping and thought it was part of a dream until I realized it was real. He was sleeping very soundly, and I was trying to wake him up by patting his arm, rubbing his chest, touching his face, talking to him, and I was frantic because I didn't know who she was, how she got in, and why she was there at 2 a.m. She just stared for a few minutes, and he was having a hard time waking up. By the time I finally was able to wake him up, she was gone. The only thing she said was, "Sorry for disturbing you." Understandably, it takes him a few minutes to get his bearings. I describe the woman, he states who it sounds like, then shows me a picture. It's the girl best friend. He checked his calls and texts, and the last time she texted him was the day before. A few minutes later, she was blowing up his phone, and he finally answered, and she said something about being scared and needing to talk to him. He told her off and ended the call, but she continued to call and text for the next hour and was upset that he wouldn't come out and talk with her. She has a boyfriend, and she obviously knows about me. My boyfriend and I live about an hour and a half apart, so I was there for about an hour after this happened. When I told him I was going home, I wanted to make sure I was okay to drive, and I was just stunned and trying to process this, and I didn't know where she was, and I was scared to run into her. He reached out to me the next day in the late morning and early afternoon, not sure if I wanted to talk to him or not. As it turns out, she let herself in, for the first time ever, having not called or texted first, to tell him she's in love with him and wanted him to choose her over me. He was shocked but laid his boundaries out, and she said that she can't be just friends with him, so their friendship is over. He's had a lot of loss in his life, and she was a big part of his support system over the last few years, so he's grieving the loss of the friendship, because this is fresh, and I don't know how to process any of this. He really does seem blindsided and never imagined she would do that. Yeah, I listen to a lot of true crime. I'm the one who locked the door before we went to bed, so I know it was locked. But at first I thought maybe a neighbor entered the wrong apartment. And then while she stared for a few minutes while I was panicking and trying to wake him up, I was like, oh no, she might be a crazy ex and she might hurt us. I have never thought about what I'd do in this situation, because I never in a million years thought I'd be in it. But holy cow. His apartment has keyless entry. She knew the access codes because they were good friends for several years, and he travels internationally for work a few weeks at a time and needed someone to water plants and grab mail. He's planning on connecting with apartment management to change both of the codes. I don't know what I think or need, but it's very clear that he doesn't understand how truly unhinged and traumatic this was for me. Validate me? Give me perspective? What? The actual heck, boyfriend's girl best friend let herself into his apartment at 2 a.m., scaring the daylights out of me because I didn't know who she was or why she was there. He says it's been platonic for 2 years, but she came to tell him she's in love with him. They briefly dated a few years ago. I know most people would probably break up immediately, but those were her actions, and he never expected it because she hasn't done that before. This is the first red flag I've seen from him. How do I process this and possibly move forward? Do I end it or do we pump the brakes? I'm aware that most people are the rule, not the exception, but I feel like he's being honest, and I don't know if I'm being too trusting. To add, clarifications. 1. Okay, the biggest glaring clarification is that I labeled her girl best friend because it's easier to say than explain the whole thing. She is not among those few that he considers his best friends, but she was the closest female friend he had. 2. I think we are both still shocked that it happened. She was a safe friend for him up until that happened, and I'm sure it's a mind-boggling realization to come to terms with how big of a deal it is. He took her at her word that they were just friends. 3. He plans on talking to his therapist and his friends, and I'm talking to mine too. He broke things off with her because of incompatibilities. I don't know if he named them all to her, but for him, it has been absolutely only platonic since they decided to become just friends after. Before, exes asked for distance between them is really that 18-month relationship or so. I don't have his previous relationships memorized because they're previous, but it sounds like that girlfriend had a very small circle of friends because she was difficult to get along with, and I think he just chalked it up to that girlfriend's insecurities and put distance with the girl best friend. Along those lines, I can see how he went there because whenever I start a new employment opportunity, it always feels like the coworkers, men and women, think we're in competition. I lay the groundwork with, hey, I'm not in competition with anyone here. We're a valuable team together because we all have our own approaches. There are some women that are hard to get along with, and they know it, and I broke off a friendship a few months ago because she was like that. It happens. 5. Keyless entry is indeed keyless. There's a pad at the front door to enter a number, and then another pad on his front door to enter another. They're friends. I have access to my friends' places. He travels internationally for work and has plants. I wasn't concerned. I trusted his trust in her, and she broke it. 6. I truly don't believe they're friends with benefits. It's not his style. He's not interested in her, whatever. Maybe she was drunk and hyped up on Hallmark movies. I don't know, and it was still scary for me. To add, she was still wearing her coat, completely zipped up, and her shoes. If you're in an intimacy relationship with someone regularly, you're not coming to the bedroom with a coat and shoes still on. 7. I don't think he's gotten to the point of realizing that she might have snuck in on other occasions. I told him I feel violated, and he should too. He's a science guy, so he's very methodical and rational, and I think he's so shocked and upset by what she did. He literally doesn't know what to say. 8. He's changing the codes. I mentioned that already. It's important. Now for an update 10/29/24. My initial post was stream of consciousness. For all you nitpickers, I did not go back and correct my word choice or spelling errors. It's beyond lengthy now, but you don't have to read it. I've been trying to read all the responses, and I feel like I've responded and answered a lot of questions. But here are some more. 1. Why Reddit? Obviously, Reddit isn't my go-to for advice, but it's an easy and quick way to get a variety of opinions without spreading this to everyone in my actual life. I have been talking to a few friends, and honestly, it's been validating that I've seen pretty much all of the thoughts I've had running through my head on this thread. When he told me that he thought I was going to break up with him each time we talked over the following few days and acknowledged most people would, I agreed that he's probably right, but I don't want to be that quick to judge him. He trusted her and took her at her word that her feelings were also simply platonic. She broke that trust. Number 2, I've seen a fair amount of people come for me because I came for him. Again, you can't know what you would do unless it happened to you. I wasn't trying to come for him. I was trying to process and be rational. I woke up to a stranger staring at us. I didn't know who she was until later. She's still a stranger to me. And I'm honestly not sure if it would be creepier if it was a stranger or that it's his ex-girl best friend. Number 3, her coat. It's been chilly up here. It was an ill-fitting puffer jacket. She was also wearing jeans, and it appeared that she was wearing an oversized sweater underneath. It wasn't a sexy lingerie under the long jacket situation. 4. Entering the apartment building / bedroom. For the last time, it's keyless entry. The main entry to the building has a keypad for you to enter the code, hold your fob up to the thing, or call the person whose apartment it is so they can buzz you in. There's a different code for his front door, and it sounds like when you use a hotel key card. The bedroom door was open because my dog was there and was initially sleeping on the couch, but eventually moved to the floor in the bedroom. She's used to sleeping on my bed at home and snuggling up. Additionally, I realized last night that the reason she might not have come further into the bedroom is because my dog was sleeping on the floor next to my boyfriend. I heard her collar jangle, so I don't know if she stood up or just looked at his ex-girl best friend. But she's not a small dog. 5. Again, we all think we know what we'd do, but there were a million factors flying through my mind. If this had happened at my house, my reaction would likely be different because it's mine, and I know who has access to my place and who doesn't. It wasn't my house. I was almost naked. I was literally in the farthest back corner in his apartment, and she's clearly been awake the whole time while I woke up to this and couldn't wake him. 6. I wasn't gently trying to wake him, by the way. Most people would wake up if someone touched their face. I was shaking and tapping him and thought something had happened to him when it took so long to wake him. 7. Somebody nailed it when they noted that it seems like part of my issue is that he didn't react immediately how I expected him to, in that he didn't run out into the hallway to catch her or see who it was. He woke up from a dead sleep. This is a lot to process. When he realized it was her, maybe he thought something terrible had happened to her, and that's why she did something he never expected. I can't answer for him. I told him that I feel violated and that he should too. But again, up until this moment, he thought she was a trusted, safe, respectful, platonic friend. What a mind-boggling situation. 8. He woke up from a dead sleep and knew I was scared and frantic, but he couldn't process quickly. He checked the apartment, figured out it was her, and was upset, not scared. This is a big generalization, but men are not generally scared of women. He told me last night that he doesn't remember much because most of it happened when he was sleeping, but he could barely keep his eyes open. He couldn't come with me back to my place because he had things to do, and he was upset with her, not scared. 9. Yeah, I worded it poorly and said it was the first red flag for him. No, it's not his red flag, but the event was a red flag. He's taken the steps to make me feel safer and more respected. And it might be a while before I feel okay staying there again. 10. Yes, we're staying together. He's honestly the best partner I've ever had. Calm, rational, affirming, kind, caring, all the things a partner should be. For everyone who jumps straight to ending it, work on being less reactive, work through your trauma, and stop projecting your baggage onto other people. I don't know that I'll update again, but thank you sincerely to all the kind people who validated me, helped me process, and assisted me with finding clarity. This isn't tied up neatly and finished. They live in a city that's big but small town. They're going to run into each other. They have common friends. It's going to be uncomfortable to navigate, but he's committed to good boundaries and making sure I feel safe, respected, and heard in our relationship. He understands where I'm coming from and didn't take any of it personally. The man is a gem. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm sure the whole "I'll go to his place and confess that I love him right now, I don't care what time it is" sounded sweet and romantic in her head, like it does in the movies. In reality, it makes her sound like a psycho. Kudos to your boyfriend for laying out the boundaries and obviously seeing that this is not acceptable. But it has the possibility to turn very bad very quickly. Comment 2. I've watched enough true crime documentaries to know how this turns out. Joking, but seriously, this is weird. And I wouldn't be surprised if you started digging. There's a lot more to their friendship or relationship. And so I guess the question is, do you want to be caught up in all of that? You said it's a new relationship. I'd bounce if I were you. Now for the update, I'm back with an update about the girl best friend situation. It's been about a month since I first posted, and honestly, it's been a ride. So my boyfriend actually went ahead and changed the codes to his apartment. At first I was like, wow, this is a bit much. But then I thought, you know what? It does make sense. Anyway, he's been super attentive since the whole incident, like constantly texting me when he was at work and calling me just to chat. He even took me out to dinner a couple of times, which is a big deal for him because he usually prefers cooking at home. So a couple of weeks ago, he invited me to a close friend's birthday party at a local brewery. He was so excited, saying that he wanted me to meet his friends. And I was like, yay, finally. For the most part, I get along with his friends, especially the girls. They're super sweet and have even asked me to join them for drinks without my boyfriend a couple of times. So I was really looking forward to this. We got to the brewery, and it was like a mini reunion for him and his friends. He was introducing me to everyone, and you could tell he was really proud to be with me. I mean, it was so cute, and honestly, it made me feel special. But then, out of nowhere, the girl best friend showed up. I didn't expect to see her there, and honestly, I kind of froze when I saw her. She looked really friendly, almost too friendly, if you know what I mean. My boyfriend stiffened up a bit when he saw her, but didn't say anything. I figured he didn't want to make a scene, so I just kept it chill. This girl best friend approached us with a huge smile and hugged my boyfriend, and at that moment, I just wanted to disappear. The hug seemed way too long, but whatever. She then invited us both to join her and some mutual friends for a game, and my boyfriend just said okay. Honestly, I didn't want to go, but I didn't want to be the clingy girlfriend who says no to everything. During the game, the girl best friend kept trying to touch my boyfriend's arm, and it was driving me insane. I noticed that he was subtly shifting away from her touch, which I appreciated. After the game, he pulled me aside and expressed concern about her behavior. He said it made him uncomfortable, and I was like, thank God, because it made me uncomfortable too. So the next week, I discovered that the girl best friend had unfollowed me on all social media. I didn't really care, but I thought it was a bit childish. My boyfriend mentioned that he had a conversation with her about boundaries after the party, and I was like, good. A few days later, he received a text from her asking to talk, and he agreed to meet her for coffee, stating it was to clarify things. I was a bit nervous about it, but I trusted my boyfriend. So here's where it gets interesting. She decided to drop by the coffee shop to pick up a drink and surprise them. My boyfriend told me later that when she walked in, he felt super relieved because he had just been thinking about how awkward it would be if I showed up. She, however, saw him sitting too close to my boyfriend, which made her upset. The way he described it was like a scene from a rom-com, but without the comedy. She pretended to focus on her drink, but they both knew she was lying. Their conversation was so awkward, like out of a sitcom or something. The girl best friend tried to act casual, but she kept saying things that made it clear she didn't respect their boundaries. She even made a comment about how much she missed their friendship, and my boyfriend's expression was a mix of surprise and appreciation. He said he never expected me to respond the way I did. Later that week, he received a late-night call from her, and he didn't answer, but he felt compelled to text me about it, which I thought was sweet. The next day, she posted a cryptic message on social media about lost love, and I rolled my eyes so hard. I decided to post a confident photo of my boyfriend and me, tagging him and all, and her comment was so passive-aggressive. It was like she was trying to stir up trouble, and I wasn't having it. My boyfriend responded publicly, stating how much he valued our relationship, and I was like, yes, this is the energy I need in my life. A few days later, she confronted him about the post, and he firmly told her he wanted no further contact, which she didn't take well. She then escalated things by sending him passive-aggressive texts, and he was just over it. He decided to block her number and social media accounts for good. Honestly, it felt like a weight was lifted off our shoulders. We had a long talk after that, and he admitted that he had been questioning our relationship because of her, but now he feels more secure with me. We've been doing better than ever, and I think we're finally on the same page. Edit, it's been a month since my last update. My boyfriend and I are doing great. We had a long talk about how we both felt after the coffee shop incident. He mentioned that he didn't realize how much the girl best friend's actions had affected our relationship until then. Trust is solid now. Am I the idiot for dumping my boyfriend after he turned every social event into a disaster? My boyfriend and I met in college in 2018 and were together from 20 to 24. We split up because he lost his job and refused to get a new one, making me cover our rent for 5 months. He was very unpleasant to be around during this time, particularly when I brought him to parties. Sometimes he would insult people, and sometimes he would start fights. It became recurrent enough that friends would explicitly ask me not to bring him to anything. After one particularly bad party where he drunkenly screamed in my face and tried to start a physical fight, he swore he would get help. He said he saw how mortifying this was and would never again put me in that position. When we finally split up in 2022, it was amicable. We remained cordial and respectful of each other, and he insisted he would make every effort to become the man I needed him to be. We both come from quite different backgrounds. I grew up in a stable middle-class household, and he grew up in a very dysfunctional and impoverished home. He is the only person in his family to get a college degree, and he is extremely intelligent. He is also, however, quite jaded, resenting many of our classmates and sometimes our friends. After we split, he moved away to work for an international tech company. I continued to work within my field and built up a strong network of friends and colleagues. Earlier this summer, we ran into each other on a night out. He seemed to be in a much better space than when I last saw him. We went on a few dates, and there was a marked change in his behavior and maturity. We spent the next few months rekindling our relationship. I was initially apprehensive about getting back together, especially given how extreme his behavior could be at parties in the past. He assured me that that was behind him and that he would make every effort to be the man I deserved. Ultimately, I believed he had changed. My work recently threw a launch party that I was unable to attend because I was sick. My coworker Janice is friends with my boyfriend and brought him to the party. Another one of my coworkers, Annie, is dating an old classmate of my boyfriend's. When my boyfriend discovered Annie was with his classmate, he started making a lot of jokes at his expense. Annie got really upset and screamed at him. It turned out that my boyfriend used to bully Annie's boyfriend when they were teenagers, to the point that Annie's boyfriend changed schools to get away from my boyfriend. My boss witnessed how my boyfriend was speaking to Annie and asked him to leave the event. Afterwards, he was banned from the premises of my workplace. When my boyfriend told me what had happened, he only said that my boss had attacked him for being working class. I doubted this, but he was adamant that he did nothing wrong, meant no offense, and was being misunderstood. Last weekend, we went to a mutual friend's Halloween party. We know this friend from college, and I was actually introduced to him by my boyfriend. I left my boyfriend alone for about 15 minutes while I chatted with friends. When I did see him again, it was with the party host, who told us that several people had complained that my boyfriend had insulted them. The following day, I got a message from the party host explaining that, though I was always welcome at his home, my boyfriend was not allowed to ever come to an event there again. When I confronted my boyfriend about this, he initially laughed it off. I made it clear that this was a deal breaker when we reconnected. He promised to look into therapy, but I told him that this behavior was completely unacceptable. He has now been banned from at least 5 homes, businesses, or events. I asked to take a few days to think about our future. He has asked me not to leave him and sent me flowers. I don't want to leave him, but I fear if I stay with him, he is going to isolate me from more and more of my friends. I despise how he acts and have asked him to change repeatedly. He insists he is going to change, but I have been through this cycle with him enough times to have very low expectations. I love him so much, but I can't let him destroy my life. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. If you stay with this guy, you're making a mistake. He is an antisocial jerk who will repel anyone who ever gets close to him, and anyone who gets close to you if you are with him. You said you would only get back together if he changed. He didn't, so leave. And he won't, so don't believe his lies when he promises you the world if you will just take him back again. Put him in the past for good. Comment 2. How many times does your boyfriend need to show you who he is until you accept it? It's worth pointing out that people you interact with may also lose respect for you. viewing you as a poor, desperate woman or a deluded fool for being with him, if you're lucky, or as a woman who has found her equal, if not. Now for the update, I'm not sure how to feel about this whole thing right now. So a few months after the Halloween party, I sat down with my ex to have a serious conversation about his behavior at social events. I told him that his past actions had affected our relationship and our friends. He promised he'd change, but honestly, I had my doubts. Fast forward to Christmas dinner with my family, and my worries were validated. He made these inappropriate jokes, including a comment about a distant relative's weight that caused an awkward silence. My mom shot him this disapproving look, and the whole vibe changed. He just brushed it off, saying he was just being funny. Not funny, dude. During the gift exchange, my brother teased him about his job, and he snapped back with a sarcastic comment about my brother's recent promotion. Like, seriously? My brother looked taken aback, and my parents exchanged these concerned glances. It was so uncomfortable. Later, my sister pulled me aside to talk about my ex's behavior. She expressed her worries about how he treated people and mentioned how it reminded her of how he bullied Annie. I just brushed it off and assured her he was working on himself. I kind of wish I had listened to her. On New Year's Eve, we went to a party hosted by a close friend, and my ex arrived late. He immediately started mocking the party games, which rubbed me the wrong way. He even made a joke focusing on a guest's past relationship issues, causing that poor guest to leave the room upset. I noticed my friends avoiding him during the party, whispering about him. When I confronted him about it, he just laughed and said they were too sensitive. The next day, I got this group chat message from my friends discussing his behavior and how they felt uncomfortable around him. They suggested having a talk with him, which I found alarming. I brought it up to him, but he dismissed it as drama. Things escalated when we were invited to a wedding where he wasn't included in the guest list. I found out through a text from the bride, who said she wanted a positive atmosphere. I felt so bad for her, like she had to exclude him just to keep the vibes good. This led to a bigger argument between us. He felt so betrayed and sulked the whole evening, making snide remarks about the couple. A few days later, we had a scheduled dinner with my parents, who brought up the wedding incident. He got all defensive, claiming my parents were against him. My dad tried to lighten the mood with jokes, but my ex snapped, leading to an argument at the dinner table. It's like he can't handle any criticism. He insisted they were overreacting and that he was just being himself. During a visit to my childhood home, I found this letter from my parents expressing their worries about our relationship. It highlighted their fears of me being isolated and losing friends. They were so right. The next weekend, I organized a small gathering with friends to discuss everything. During the gathering, everyone shared their concerns about my ex, and it led to a heated discussion. I ultimately decided to break up with him after the gathering. My friends supported me, and we even planned a trip together to celebrate my newfound independence. I felt so relieved and excited to be free. I texted my ex, explaining the breakup and my reasons. He responded angrily, accusing me of being influenced by others. He just doesn't get it, does he? Edit. I reached out to Annie to apologize for my ex's behavior. She was really understanding and mentioned that her boyfriend is doing better now. My friends organized a trip to celebrate my breakup, and I had such a great time. I'm focusing on myself, my work, and enjoying being single. Am I the idiot for threatening divorce over a water softener and my wife's lies? I have suffered from eczema for about 10 years. In the past, I have had anywhere from mild to moderately severe flare-ups, but in the past year, I have finally gotten it under control to the point that I actually don't have hardly any flare-ups anymore. Part of the solution to my eczema that I found was turning off our water softener. I know that is not the case for everyone, and some people say that soft water is actually better for eczema, but that is not the case with my skin. In fact, I experimented with it multiple times and proved that it did indeed cause flare-ups for me. Cut to approximately 6 months ago, I started noticing the itchiness increasing and a few small flare-ups. I checked the water softener and lo and behold, it was turned on again. I asked my husband about it, and he had some reasoning or another. He preferred the soft water and joked that he wanted to see if it was just in my head. I was very angry, and we got into a fight about it. I told him that this obviously is not in my head, as I had the flare-ups and itchiness to prove it. I told him to please never turn it on again, and he apologized and agreed. I cannot for the life of me remember if we unplugged the machine or just turned it off. Cut to yesterday. I got out of the shower and felt the slimy, itchy feeling that comes with soft water. I immediately went and looked at the water softener, and it was plugged in and on. I was absolutely irate and also heartbroken. I immediately confronted him, but he completely denies turning it on. We do not live with anyone else, no kids, roommates, or anything. We did have a guy inspecting gas lines recently in our basement, which is in the same room as the water softener. His dad also is at our house from time to time and is very much a nosy busybody type who also has slight dementia. I would not be completely shocked if his dad messed with it, as he has a history of similar things. So there is a small chance that one of those people actually did plug it in or mess with it. But my gut honestly tells me that he's lying to me and that he did this again. But I also can't wrap my head around the fact that he would knowingly do something that would cause me physical discomfort and pain. I want to believe him, but I think there is probably a 75% chance it was him. What I have done so far, I unplugged the machine and put a note on the cord saying, "Do not plug in." I explained to him very clearly that it is not funny, it's not okay to test me like that, and that it causes me a lot of discomfort. I explained all of this and told him plainly that if it is ever plugged in again, I would be filing for divorce, as he would knowingly be putting my health and comfort at risk. My question is, I know this is a red flag and I will 100% be on alert for other signs. But how red are we talking? Does this count as emotional or even physical abuse? Or is it just a little squall or misunderstanding between two people who prefer different things? Like I said, I know it's not okay. I just want to know how bad this is. Any helpful opinions are appreciated, or any advice for anything else I should do at this point. Thank you in advance. For added context, our relationship otherwise is good. Not perfect, but mostly good. He is what I would consider a good person for the most part, although he is not a perfect partner. But there is no history of mental or physical abuse. The worst of it from his side is disrespect at times and being selfish or inconsiderate, all things that lots of partners struggle with. I just added that for context. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I think therapy would really help you figure out your next steps. I can't tell from your post what is going on, but a professional could help you sort it out. If I were you, I'd start checking the softener before every shower. If it doesn't turn on again, he is probably not a malicious person. If the softener gets turned on repeatedly, he doesn't respect you or care about you, and you probably should leave. Comment 2. I don't have an answer for your question about abuse, to be honest, but I can say I completely understand how you're feeling. I have psoriatic arthritis, and the salt from the water softener would make me itch and cause psoriasis flares. We switched to a reverse osmosis system and now enjoy soft water without the salt. Now for the update. I'm back with another update about my husband's ongoing saga with the water softener. In case you missed the last episode, here's what you need to know. I'm a dude, and I've had eczema for like a decade. I found some control over it, but then my husband turned the water softener back on, which we agreed I could never ever use again. I was so mad that I left a note saying I'd think about divorce if it happened again. I know, right? That's some serious stuff. Anyway, you guys were so helpful, and I wanted to let you know how it's been going. Some time has passed since the last incident, and guess what? My eczema is flaring up again. What a coincidence, right? I'm constantly uncomfortable and just feel like I want to peel my skin off. It's just the worst. My husband, though, continues to deny having anything to do with the water softener. He's like, I have no idea how it keeps getting plugged back in. It must be a malfunction. Yeah, right. So I've decided to keep a close eye on that stupid thing. Every single time it gets plugged back in or messed with, I take a picture of it as evidence. I know it's ridiculous, but I can't help it. The more he insists he hasn't touched it, the more I wonder if he's lying. Our interactions have been so awkward lately. We're not fighting or anything, but there's this weird tension. It feels like we're both on edge all the time. Anyway, we had to go to a family dinner for my cousin's birthday. It was me, my parents, my siblings, their partners, and of course, my husband. At first, everyone was in a good mood, sharing stories and catching up. It was really nice. Then during dinner, my husband made a joke about my eczema, and let me tell you, it was cringy. The whole table went silent, and I just wanted to melt into my chair. You could practically hear the awkwardness. Later on, my husband stepped outside to take a phone call, and I couldn't help but get curious. I heard bits and pieces of his conversation, and guess what? He was talking about someone named Jake. The name Jake brought back some memories for me. Jake was an old friend of my husband's, and back in the day, he had a similar issue with me. It was a big thing in our friend group, and it caused some tension. After the call, my husband seemed so distant, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was up. I decided I needed to talk to him about that call later that night. So we get home, and I casually asked him about the conversation. His whole demeanor changed, and he got super defensive. It was just a work call, he insisted. I kept pressing for details because something didn't feel right. Then he just stormed out to the garage, muttering under his breath. Of course, I followed him, demanding to know what was wrong. That's when he accused me of being paranoid about the water softener. We started arguing, and I couldn't help but bring up the whole divorce threat thing from before. I know it probably wasn't the best idea, but I was just so fed up. During the argument, he revealed that he confided in Jake about our ongoing conflict. It made me feel even more uneasy. We decided to take a break from the conversation and cool off. A week later, I found the water softener plugged in again. I took a picture of it, just like before, as proof to show my husband. I was getting ready to have a serious discussion with him about it during an upcoming family holiday. The holiday gathering came, and let me tell you, the tension between us was so obvious. You could cut it with a knife. I decided it was time to address the water softener issue at the dinner table. I explained how it affects my health and how we've been having problems with it, hoping for understanding from my family. But right when I was trying to share my struggles, my husband interrupted, trying to brush it off as an overreaction. I stood my ground and detailed everything that had happened. At that point, family members looked really uncomfortable, unsure of what to say. My husband's mom stepped in and suggested that he needed to listen to me. And finally, after all this, he agreed to keep the water softener unplugged for good. It felt like a small victory. We left the family gathering with a silent agreement to be more honest with each other. In the days that followed, I found a note from my husband apologizing for everything. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. We still have a lot of talking to do about trust and communication, but I hope we're on the right track. To answer a few questions, my husband had turned on the water softener again, causing the eczema flare-ups. Despite our agreement, it happened multiple times, leading to tension in our relationship. At a family dinner, my husband made a joke about my condition, which was awkward for everyone. I overheard him discussing someone named Jake, an old friend who had caused conflict between us in the past. My husband became defensive when I asked about Jake, heightening the existing issues. We ultimately decided to communicate better, and he apologized, acknowledging the need for improvement in our relationship. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.